Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
And that was then FBI Director James Comey announcing back in July of 2016 that the Bureau would not recommend charges for Hillary Clinton. Now, a bombshell new discovery from 2 U.S. senators is casting doubt on whether Comey was taking the investigation into Clinton's misconduct seriously. In a letter written to current FBI Director Christopher Wray, Senators Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham alleged that Comey drafted a statement clearing Clinton of all charges, quote, long before FBI agents finished their work, end quote. According to the senators, the statement was drafted before Hillary Clinton was even interviewed. And joining us now with reaction to these shocking new revelations from the American Center for Law and Justice, President Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow, and Fox News contributor, former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. Gentlemen, this is a huge story, really quite a bombshell. It's one that many people were talking about during the campaign, but now we're actually seeing the story has some legs to it. Jay, I'll begin with you. Do you feel that there is a violation here of the Hatch Act?
I think the Hatch Act at a minimum, but I think there's something more serious. And that is the whole investigation evidently was just a fraud on the American people. It was a faux investigation. You've got James Comey now with emails going back and forth where he's drafting 3 months before they interview 16 witnesses, including the supposed target of the investigation, exoneration, basically a declination letter before they interviewed the witnesses. So you got to ask yourself, really, what's going on here? And James Comey had the nerve to testify under oath that he had to come forward last July to make his statement because the whole process where Loretta Lynch met with President Clinton on the tarmac in Phoenix cast doubt on the scope and nature of the investigation and the integrity of the Department of Justice and the FBI. But, Kimberly, here's the fact. The fact is, evidently, he already made up his mind 3 months before the investigation really got underway. So this whole thing was a fraud on the American people.
It's really outrageous. It's beyond conduct unconscionable. Really, it's interfering with the system of justice as we know it. The investigation was already predetermined, the outcome. So that's why people are outraged and upset and really keying in on this particular story tonight. I'm going to go to Ari and ask you, is there any reasonable excuse for drafting a statement like this early on? See if you can come up with one.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have tremendous respect for the FBI. I've always been one of those people who have just the deepest thoughts of the integrity of that institution. And this story has shaken my belief in the integrity of the institution, at least as it was being led by James Comey. Because what we're hearing here is, if this is true, that investigation, the most high-profile, important thing the FBI was doing, was a sham. The only excuse I could think of, and I hope this is true, is that he also had a similar if he was going to bring criminal charges. So perhaps he was being diligent, prepared 2 different statements. But I think if that was the case, the investigators would have found the documentation for that as well. They only found it for the exoneration theory.
It's fascinating. It's such a great point. That would have been the best way for them to try to exonerate, to say, wait a second, let's play this down a second, because we actually prepared 2 in the event of, the outcome, depending on what it was. But if they don't have the evidence, Jay, to substantiate that, and believe me, Comey has always said that he is, I'm meticulous about it. I take notes. I type things up. Wouldn't there be some kind of record or notation to back that up?
Of course, but there's also something else here. There's testimony before the Senate committee where the individuals, including the senior counsel to James Comey and his chief of staff, where they said this was a leaning forward document, looking to the fact that we know where this is going, that there's going to be an exoneration. But, Kim, you've litigated cases for a long time as well.
Prosecutor.
Who in the world would draft a document, 3 months before witness interviews are complete, including the subject and target of the investigation, and Cheryl Mills and some of the key individuals involved? 16 or even 17 witnesses not interviewed. That's what I'm saying here. This goes to the heart of a false statement that was made by James Comey when he went and made that whole statement in front of national TV where he lists out the charges of guilt and then says, nevertheless, no prosecutor would charge it. And it takes one other thing. James Comey took over the role of the Attorney General of the United States, where she didn't bother to recuse herself after she had the meeting, but it should have been the Department of Justice making this decision, not
right.
James Comey. And the fact he got away with that is inexcusable.
He did get away with it, right, Ari, at the time?
And I think Deputy Attorney General, Deputy FBI Director Andy McCabe has some explaining to do, too.
Right.
This shakes your faith in that bureau. It shakes your faith in everything the American people have to believe the FBI when they say they looked into it and here's what they found. When Comey came out with that finding against Hillary, I didn't like it, but I accepted it.
Right.
I accepted it because you have to accept what law enforcement tells you, or our society breaks down. Comey's got a lot of explaining to do. Andy McCabe has explaining to do. The American people have a right to hear it, and they need to be held. Their feet need to be held to the fire. We need to know.
You're absolutely right. I mean, they deserve
Comey
justice in this case, which means the truth. I think you're right about that, because it was already, we saw, you know, kind of shades of this being highly problematic when, as you said, he stepped over the bounds in terms of his role as an investigator, the head of the FBI, and then became judge and jury and said, okay, I'm going to tell you that no reasonable prosecutor, that is not your job. That already undermines the credibility of the investigation right there.
And no reasonable FBI director would have leaked a conversation he had with the President of the United States to a friend of his so they could leak it to the New York Times.
Ethical
no reasonable person would do that either. Criminality, he needs to hire a good criminal defense lawyer, in my view.
All right, and we'll see. What do you? Quick final comment, Christopher Wray. What should he do about this?
He should demand from James Comey to hear what happened, and James Comey needs to go public and say it too. This is serious. It gets to the core
Put him under
of
oath.
Can we trust the FBI or not? We must trust the FBI. If something was done wrong, Wray needs to out it.
I think you're absolutely right, and they have to do that to restore some of the faith and credibility. You know what? The hard-working men and women of the FBI that put it on the line every day to serve this country, they deserve better than that. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Appreciate it so much, Jay and Ari. Coming up, Hillary Clinton has released dates for her book tour, and big surprise, she's charging top dollar for VIP tickets. We're going to explain just how much, and we're going to get reaction from Charlie Hurt and Richard Fowler and Larry Elder. Plus, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West joins us later tonight. Stay with us.